Hello wonderful people, it's Wild here. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to build a fantasy medieval tower cottage. This charming build has a tall tower with an exposed framework which has a beautifully medieval feel to it. I'll be showing you step by step how to create this build, as well as how I like to style it to really make it a showstopper, as well as several variations that you can try out to customize this build. And with a spacious interior, this build would make a perfect standalone build or addition to any fantasy medieval town. Let's get building. The materials you'll need for this build are on your screen now. Keep in mind that you can swap out some of these supplies to create different variations, and you can check those out at the end of the video. Keep in mind that if you're having trouble getting any of these supplies, you can leave a comment and I'd be happy to offer some substitutions. It's also a good idea to have a few extra of each supply on hand just to make building easier. Here is the outline for our build. You can see that it is essentially two 9x7 rectangles joined together. That gap joining them together is 3 blocks wide, and you can place in an outline like this one to help you build. We're going to begin our construction using some stripped spruce logs, and we're going to be building up posts which are 6 blocks high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they're going to go on each of the corners of the build, as well as when we've got interior corners, so when I curve back in here. So I've got all of those posts in first, and then I need to add one more, and that's going to go in the center of this outer wall, and that should line up with the one on the other side. So if I look from above, you can see where we've got all of our posts. I'm going to go ahead now and connect all of these across the top with a beam like this. And I'm just going around the perimeter here. I'm then going to add one more in to create 2 separate rectangles like this. I'm now looking at the build from where the front is, so you can see we've got this rectangle leading off towards the left, and then this one pointing towards the front. In the center here, where we've got 3 on either side, I'm going to add in 3 temporary blocks going up. This is where we're going to add in our doorway. Then I'm going to fill around the outside of this rectangle using a mixture of mossy cobblestone, cracked stone brick, and cobblestone to create a texturized look that gives a more worn texture. I want to make sure each of these sections look a little bit different, so I'm going to jump back and forth. And it's up to you how much of each material you use. And finally, I'm just going to fill in these 2 here. So we've gone around the base of this rectangle, and now for the other one, we're just going to go 1 layer high. Once again, going in with all these blocks to texturize. Next up, let's fill in the floor. I'm going to be using stripped dark oak logs for this, and I'm going to have them facing different directions in each section of the build. So I'm going to run these ones this way along, and then I'll swap for this section of the build. This provides a little bit of visual separation and interest for the floor. I'm also going to go ahead and remove these temporary blocks so I can place one in here. And now we're going to add in where we're having windows and doors. So I am going to add back in this door over on that side. And then off to the side of the build, I'm going to add in a doorway here. I'm just using a temporary block for now. Next, let's add in some windows, starting on this section of the build. I'm going to use a temporary block to build up 1 block high, and then I'm going to use some light blue stained glass blocks to place in a 2x3 rectangle here. On this side of the build, we're going to have a 2-high window 1 block off the ground, as well as on this side beside the door, and at the back in the center. Then over to this section where we have the 2 high stone materials, I'm going to have 2 windows on the back wall. These are sitting on top of that stone layer, and there should be a 3-block gap between them. And we've got 1 window on this wall just in the center like this. Now that we've got all of our walls marked in, we can start filling in the rest of the walls using a mixture of white wool, white concrete powder, and some birch wood. And just like when we were adding in the stone materials, you just want to go back and forth to create a texture that you're happy with, and every wall is going to look a bit different, and that's part of the character. Don't be afraid to take a step back and make some changes, and you might find it easiest if you're building in creative to add in all of one material first and then come back in and texturize. When I'm filling in these walls, one thing I am going to keep in mind is that I'm going all the way around the outside of both of these areas and leaving this walkway clear. So I'll fill in this section and move on to this part. Alright, I'm finished all of my walls now, so let's check them out. You can see that each wall is just a little bit different. If you're having trouble texturizing your walls, I recommend either starting with the base of all one material and adding in your blocks here and there, or finding one wall that you do like the look of and repeating it and just making a few subtle changes. The great thing about a randomized texture like this is it doesn't have to be perfect. Another thing to note is that while I've used light blue stained glass for my windows, you can swap this out to whatever color you like to suit the color palette you want to create for your build. Okay, let's start building up on this tower. I've got some more of my strip spruce logs here, and we're going to be building up in the 4 corners. And I'm going to be going up 7 high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Next up, we're going to create some decorations on these 2 walls. So 1 block in from either side, I'm going to build up 2 high. Then I'll build all the way across the top of this layer. In the center, I'm going to build up to that 7th block height, and then I'll connect across the top. And we'll do the same thing on this other side. There we go. Now on the front and the back, I'm going to build up 2 high in the center. Then I'm going to build a plus, so I'll build 3 up with a temporary block and 1 to either side. This will allow me to place in and make sure I've got in the right location some more blocks going off to the side and 2 more blocks going up like this, and then I'll connect across the top with some more of these logs. And I can remove these temporary blocks. We're going to build up 2 high, then 3, and off to either side. A couple more logs here and at the top, and connect up. So here's how the framing for this layer should look. Going on top for the next story, I'm going to add 6 blocks on top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are just going onto the corners. Then I'm going to connect up on all 4 sides. Once we've got all this framing in, we'll be filling in the floors and the walls, but by creating this frame, it's going to give us a bit of a groundwork to go on. Next, I'm going to add in some framing on these 3 gables. So I'm going to find the center block, and off to either side, I'm going to build up 3 high. And again down on this lower gable as well, find the center and off to either side. While we're down here on this lower story of the build, I'm going to come over to this edge and create an entryway to the attic space of this roof. So I'm going to remove this block here, and in its place, I'm going to place in a spruce trapdoor. Then down below here, I'm going to add in an extra log. Next up, we need to add in some of the framing for the gable windows. So I'm going to find the center of this wall. It should be above the doorway. Then off to either side of that, I'm going to build up 4 high. And at the top and bottom, I'll connect like this. I'm going to do this on the back side as well. Find the center and build up 4 high on either side. I'm also going to take the time to come forward and back on the top of these logs. Okay, let's start creating some floors. Inside the build, you're going to want to place down some torches because it's going to get a little bit dark in here. I'm going to grab some spruce logs and I'm going to place a row of these going down twice along this way, like this. So here and here. And then in the center going this way along. To create this sort of grid pattern. And this should be level with all of these logs. Then at the top layer, I'm going to place in spruce slabs in all of these gaps. You can see how this is creating a beamed effect inside. And from the layer above, we've just got a nice floor to walk on. In this next room, I'm going to start by adding in a ladder, and that's going to go up along this side beside our walkway between the 2 rooms. Then I'm going to grab my strip spruce logs and I'm going to have 1 beam going across this way and 1 beam going across this way. Both are centered on their respective walls. I'm then going to fill in the layer using some spruce slabs, again creating that beamed effect below. Of course, we'll need to leave out that area where we've got our ladder. The next layer we need to add a floor onto is this layer here at the top of this story. Our ladder is going to be going on the same back wall, but on the opposite side to this first ladder, but we'll add that in later. For now, I'm going to build a beam going all the way across here and all the way across here in the center of their walls and fill in with some more spruce slabs. One thing I will keep in mind is that I'm going to leave this back corner free for where my ladder will come out. For the final story, which is where we're going to have our attic, the ladder is going to need to come up in this point here. So I'm going to grab my strip spruce logs and leaving a gap, I'm going to add in 3 beams going across this way like this. Then in line where we've got these 2 posts sticking up, I'm going to fill in going across this way. But I'm only going to place in 1 log on this side here. So this side I'm going to leave free. Then I'm going to fill in all of these gaps, so leaving this gap free because that's where our ladder will come up eventually. So from below, we've got a more intricate design on this roof with a gap here for the ladder. Coming back down to the story below, that's this one here where we've got the large opening for a window on either end. I'm going to grab some looms and I'm going to go all the way around the perimeter of this level. I want to make sure I'm placing them so that only the sides are visible. So this texture is tucked in like this. Let's have a look. I'm going to creep out here and you can see that same texture is visible from the exterior. Then I'm going to grab some of my stripped dark oak logs and fill in this floor. Make sure you leave that gap there for the ladder. And in fact, since we need to be able to access this door here, I'm going to be adding a spruce trapdoor in this gap. So when it's closed, you can easily walk through here. And when it's open, we can go up and down the ladder. Let's go ahead and work on the walls for this story. I'm going to come back outside the build to do this. On the front and the back where we have these large openings, I'm going to create a 3x3 window out of my chosen glass color. So for me, that's the light blue. Then for this story, I'm just going to fill in all of the gaps on all of the walls with a mixture of my white wool, my white concrete powder, and my birch wood. Alright, there's all of the walls for that layer filled in, and you can see that I've continued that randomized texture, and I filled in everything except leaving out this little doorway here. On to the next story. We're going to start with some looms again, going all the way around the perimeter here. Once again, making sure we're only using the side texture. There we go. Now let's mark in our windows. I'm going to be using some more of my light blue stained glass, and on the longer walls I'll have 2 windows. They're both 1 block in from the side and have a 3 block gap between them. There we go. Oops. There we go. And on the 2 end walls, I'm going to place these in the center. Then just as before, I'll continue filling in my walls. These walls are really starting to come together, and of course we're going to be adding plenty of decoration on top. Before we do this, I'm going to add in my ladders. So I'm going to jump down to where I have my last ladder, which is here, and add in one going up this side. And I'm going to add in one going up here as well. You'll notice I'm stopping one before the top because I want to leave enough space for a trapdoor. Now at the top of our tower, I'm going to be adding in the walls of this gable. So we want to add one more block to either side of these 2 posts at the front and back, and then we're going to build up 5 high in the center. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just like this. Again, 1 on either side. And then 5 in the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's swap these 2 around. There we go. Perfect. I'm going to do the same gable design down here with 1 on either side. And 5 in the center. We're almost up to adding in the roof, but let's add in these dormer windows first. So we've already got the framing in, but I'm going to go ahead and add in some light blue stained glass panes in here, and the reason we're using panes instead of the blocks is because we won't have space to add a window decoration, and the panes provide a bit of dimension. Then while I'm inside the build, I'm going to be taking some spruce stairs, and I want to place these on either side of the window like this. Then I can use my mixture of white materials to create a wall in this space. There we go. I'm also going to add a block on top of the center on either side. Just like that. One last step before we add the roofs onto both of these gables is that we need to take some spruce stairs, and I'm going to place them upside down coming off of the back side of each of these logs, just like this. And I'm also going to place in one of my white material blocks just in this corner here, and that's going to fill in the gap when it comes to roofing. I'm using red stained terracotta for my roof, but you can switch this out for whatever color or block you like. And this is another great way you can customize the build and achieve so many different looks. So you can see that for the first 2 layers, I'm just going up 1 block at a time, and I'm not extending out over the edge at all here. I'm finishing right in line with the wall. So once we've gone 2 layers up, I'm going to jump into a 2 high layer, and this is just going to go on either side of the windows like this. We're going to have another 2 high layer, and when I place this one in, I'm just going to finish right on top of those stairs. And we'll finish off this roof with another 2 high layer. Then for the little dormer window roofs, we're just going to go 2 blocks out so we're in line with this wall here, and just follow 1 block up at each time until we complete the roof like this. And again on this side. At the moment your roof might look a little bit boxy, but we're going to be fixing that with some decorations once we've got the main shape in. So here's how the first roof should look. Now up at the top, we're going to do just about the same thing, except we don't have any dormer windows to work around. So we're just going to follow up the shape created by our gables, not extending over the edge at all. I'm going to have a 2 high layer on the very top. And on the other side. You can see that this lowest layer is going on the side of the wall, covering up where we've got that beam there. There we go. And you should see that each roof will follow a pattern of 2 layers of 1 high blocks, and then 2 layers of 2 high blocks, and then a 2 high layer in the center. And let's check, this roof down here does the same thing. Let's add that dark oak edge onto the roof now, starting on these gable ends. I'm going to begin with a stripped spruce log, and I'm having these come out from each of the joints at the top there. I'm also going to have a log stick out from the top of these 2 posts, and then 2 logs sticking out at the top here. Now I'm going to grab some dark oak stairs, and I'm going to place them at the top layer of each of these sections. So you can see we've got some gaps in here. I'm filling those in by placing in some upside down stairs. Like this. For the top section, I'm going to add in an upside down stair, followed by a dark oak plank, and then a right way up stair facing the other direction. And then we need to add in some trapdoors. So I'm going to add trapdoors going up the sides like this, so each side is going to get 3 trapdoors. You can see how that looks. I'm going to go ahead and create this same gable design on this roof here on both sides. So once again, I'm going to start with my logs, and then my stairs. Upside down stairs go in next. And we need to do the top. And we'll finish off with some trapdoors. And on to the other side. If you're enjoying today's video and would like to access some additional benefits like world downloads of schematics for this and all my other builds, as well as access to a multi-world server where you can play alongside me, check out the link in the description to my Patreon. I would love to have you join my community, and I really appreciate your support. top edge of this roof, I'm going to be using some dark oak trapdoors and slabs and alternating between them like this. I want to make sure I start and finish on a trapdoor. Let's come back down now towards the edges of these roofs, and once again we're going to alternate between the dark oak trapdoors and slabs, starting again on the trapdoors right onto those stairs there at the end. Here we go. So that roof is pretty much complete, and of course we still have lots more decorations to add to the walls. Let's come back down and work on the lower roof now. I'm going to start in this back corner to add some edging in here. I'm going to begin by placing in a log in this join, and then I'll start just the same with my stairs going up. I'm just going to place 2 stairs going up to begin with, and then my upside down stair. And then for the stair on top of this, I'm going to face it so it's going in towards the roof like this and out towards the window. I can then place in my trapdoor just as normal, and that roof will finish off just like this. Along the bottom edge, we're going to create the same pattern using the trapdoors and slabs. And you want to make sure you end with a trapdoor on the stair. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side, except I'm going to finish before I get to the end with a slab here. So I'm going to leave a gap on this side. Coming up to the top of this roof, again, we're going to follow the same pattern of trapdoor and slab, but just as we did before, we're going to finish a bit earlier. So we're going to finish with this last trapdoor, leaving a 1 block gap. Now for the decoration on these smaller roofs. I'm going to begin by placing 2 stripped spruce logs coming out from the top of the roof like this. And I'm going to add a dark oak trapdoor to either side of that, and then a stair on top. Then to finish off this roof, we're just going to add 2 stairs going down to either side. And we're going to create the same pattern with our trapdoors and slabs on top. Let's do the same thing on the other side. Let's start adding in some decorations to really bring this build to life. I'm going to start with the decorations going on each gable. Using some spruce stairs, I'll place 2 in along here and then slabs in between those. Then I'm going to place in a couple of spruce fences going up like this, and a slab between these 2 logs, and a fence above that. Next, I'm going to take some signs, and I'm just placing 3 of these blank across like this. And this same design is going to be placed on all of our gables, so these upper ones as well. While we're working on gables, let's work on these very small gables on our dormers. I'm going to place in 4 stairs on each one with some fences in between, and then a slab up here. And I'm just going to simply leave it at that. Let's go ahead and add this on the other side. Now we're going to add some decorations to the walls of this tower. Let's start on the lower story. I'm going to begin by placing in a log coming out from each of the joins around here like this. I'm just placing these in the corners, leaving out this central join. Underneath each of these logs, I'll place in a stair and then a fence. And now I'm going to grab some slabs and I'm going to be placing these along the top layer here. I'm going to leave out this side because we're going to have another roof going over there in a second, but I'll do the front and this little section here, which is why we've left out that trapdoor. Now for some window decorations. On all of these one wide, 2 high windows, I'm going to start by creating an archway with a slab and 2 stairs on either side. So you can see how it creates a curve. Then at the base, I'm going to place in my first stair upside down facing out, and then I'll place a barrel onto that and another stair off of that. Just like this. To finish up this window decoration, I'm going to place in a blank sign in front of the barrel, and then I'm going to add in some of these window shutter banners, and you can find a tutorial for those in the description below. I just created these using brown to match the color palette on my build. If you're going to go with a different color palette, you can experiment and try making these window shutters colorful. If you are making a pink version of this build, for example, some pink window shutters could look really pretty. Alright, I'm going to repeat this design now on all of my windows that are on this section of the build. So not over here, just this lower layer of this section. There we go. Next, let's add a window decoration to this central window. I'm going to start with a stair above and 2 slabs off to either side. For the base, I'll add a stair on either side and then a barrel in the center. And I want to make sure these stairs are facing forward. Now for the actual window frame, I'm going to place in some spruce fences, and then I'm going to have a double layer of trapdoors coming out like this. Once I flip them, you'll see it makes a pretty design on either side. Before we go further up on the build, let's add some decorations to the windows and walls of this section. I'm going to start by adding in some spruce stairs onto the tops of each of these posts. I'm also going to be placing one in the center of the back wall. I'm then going to place some spruce trapdoors below this, again underneath in the center of this wall. And now I'm going to move on to decorating. So we're going to be placing in 2 stairs with a barrel in the center and a sign in the front, and you want to make sure your barrel is going off to the side like that. I'm then going to use those same window shutter banners, but I'm not putting anything on top just yet. Now to go on top, I'm going to be placing in some signs. And you can see I'm going all the way around the build here. But I'm going to stop when I get to the front. We're going to add our decoration to the door before we add in those signs. I can remove these temporary blocks and place in a birch door like this. Then for the walkway up, I'm going to create with andesite, and I'm just placing in a block with 3 stairs and then 2 slabs to create a nice slope like that. For the decoration around the door, I'll start with some trapdoors, and then we're going to use stairs to make an archway. And I'm even finishing with a stair in the center. I'm also going to add in 2 stripped logs coming out like this, and we'll be hanging a lantern from here later on. To mirror the build of the window frame on this side and provide some balance, I'm just adding in 1 extra stair there, and I'm going to place a button on either side of the door. Now we can go ahead and add in those signs along the top layer, and you can see that we're just placing in 2 on that side. Another decoration we're going to be adding all the way around this base layer is some trapdoors. So I'm going to be coming underneath each of the posts and placing in a lever which I'll flip, and then I can place in iron trapdoors on both sides and fill in that gap. And I want to make sure I do this all the way around. Oops, I forgot to flip that one. There we go. You'll even want to make sure you do it on this one where we've only got the 1 trapdoor going in. All of those trapdoors are in, so let's add in the decoration to this doorway. Just as at the front door, I'm going to create a platform out of some andesite. Then for this door, instead of a birch one, I'm going to be using spruce, because this doesn't have the same importance as the front door, so we want it to blend in a little bit more. And I'm going to finish off this simple decoration with 3 stairs, or rather 3 signs going across there. Okay, let's move up to the next layer. I'm going to start by placing in some stripped spruce logs, and these are going at the joins of each of the corners on this layer. I'm then going to take some spruce stairs, and I'm placing these upside down in the center of each of these sections. And I'll connect those up with some spruce slabs. Now underneath each of these logs, I'm going to place in a stair followed by a fence. And at the bottom, I'm going to place in a stair and a fence as well. Of course, when we come to this section where the roof is, we'll just leave out the bottom part of that decoration. Okay, let's work on this side here first. I'm going to come in with some trapdoors, and I'm going to place 3 going along with a 1 block gap between each. There we go. Next, I'm going to take some of my signs, and in the center, I'm going to place them going all the way across the white sections, just like that. Over on the other side, we're going to do something very similar. So I'm going to be placing in my trapdoors with a 1 block gap between them all the way across. Then I'm going to go in with my signs and place 2 groups of 3. So it should look like this. Now on the front and back walls, we're going to add a decoration to this window, starting with a stair underneath. Then I'm going to add in a trapdoor off to either side. At the top, I'm going to add a slab with a trapdoor off to either side, and then I'm going to place in 4 spruce stairs going in a circle, just like this. To finish off the circular shape, I'm going to add a trapdoor in these gaps, and then behind that trapdoor as well, creating a circle. I'm going to add in 3 fences in the center, and to finish off the decoration here, I'm going to add 2 trapdoors on these sections of log. Let's do this on the other side. If you're having trouble placing your trapdoors onto other trapdoors, I'm going to show you a useful technique. So we're going to start off the same like this, and then we're going to place in our stairs. If you're having trouble placing them onto the trapdoors themselves, you want to look at the back corner of the glass block that you're placing onto. There we go. Now to place in our trapdoors. So the first 2 are easy. You're just placing them onto the stairs and flipping them up. Now I like to place mine directly onto the trapdoor that I'm clicking on, just while holding a crouch. But if you're having trouble with this, you can place in some sort of temporary block, then place your trapdoor onto that, flip it down and remove the temporary block. Okay, let's add in our fences and our last few trapdoors. On to the next story up. We're going to do the front and the back walls first. Let's start by adding in a couple of stairs with some trapdoors below that. And then we're going to add fences at the base. For the window decoration, I'm going to place in 3 slabs, and then some more of our window shutter banners from earlier. And I'm going to go all the way across with some spruce signs, and then all the way across on top of that with some spruce buttons. Now around to the sides. I'm going to start off the same way with some spruce stairs, but I'm also going to place one in the center. Let's add in our trapdoors next. And then we want to create little archways over here. So I'll place in a slab followed by a trapdoor and then a slab. Next, let's add in our fences, just on either side. And then we're going to create window decorations like before with 3 slabs and then our window shutter banners. And to finish off, let's add in a few more signs. So it'll look like this. If you're creating today's build, don't forget to join my Discord server and share some pictures. I would love to see how this looks in your world. For the next step, I'm going to come back down to the base of the build over to the side where we have our side door. And we're going to be adding in a sort of roof here. So I'm taking some more of my roofing material, in my case red terracotta, and I'm just joining up between these two posts. I'm going to come down a layer in front of this window and build out two. Then I'll use another temporary block to come down and out two again. Next, we'll use some dark oak to create a design on the edge. I'm starting with some stairs, placed like this. Then to make them feel a bit more connected, I'm going to add a slab on top of this stair and below this stair. Or rather, a trapdoor. Then along the front, we're going to be using trapdoors and slabs alternating back and forth again like this. This is mirroring the design we've got in our major roof. So here's how this should look. Now we need to add in some supports. So we're going to use some spruce fences for this, and these are just coming down from these trapdoors. Then I'm going to grab some fence gates, and these are going all the way along like this, and then I'm going to open them all up. This build is really coming together now and it's looking awesome, but we've got a few more details to add in, starting with some lighting. I'm going to place a couple lanterns underneath this red canopy we've just created, and it doesn't matter if your lanterns are in exactly the same place as mine, we're going for a rustic look here. From the tall gables, I'm going to place in a grindstone and hang down some chain lengths, and it's up to you how far you hang these down. I like to have mine at different heights on both sides. That goes well with this rustic feel. I'm going to do the same thing coming off of this gable at the base. And I'm going to hang some lanterns a chain or two lengths down from these dormer windows. I'm also going to be hanging one over the top of our doorway. Next, to add to that cozy feel, we're going to add in a couple of chimneys. The first chimney is going on the lower roof, and I want to come to the back side on this last group of two before we get to the top. I'm going to count one block in and add in a stair. And once again, I'm using a mixture of the mossy cobble, regular cobble, and then the cracked stone bricks like we have in the foundation. So we've got our first stair facing out and a stair up from that. Then I'm going to be placing in a block with a stair on top. I'm going to have an upside down stair coming out from here, followed by another block. And then I'll add my campfire and some trapdoors on top of here. Just like this. For the next chimney, we'll come up to the very top roof. I'm going to find the first group of two, so that's a group down from that, right above where we have these two here, and I'm going to count 2 blocks in. On that third one, I'm going to add in a stair. We've got a stair behind it, and we're going to add in a block. Then we've got 2 stairs going on top. Just like this. We're going to finish off with a couple more blocks, followed by our campfire, and then some trapdoors to surround. This chimney should be 1 block taller in this section than the lower chimney. Now that our chimney is in, let's add in the final decorations. And here we go. Here is the build now that it's all finished and decorated. So let's check out what we've added to really bring it to life. The first thing I did was add in some of these leaves. This adds a pop of bright color and breaks up the solid hues on the roof, and also makes it feel a little bit more at home in this lush biome. It works really well with these rustic builds to have the leaves draping off the roofs and the walls, and I've gone with these azalea leaves because they have such a bright contrast, but you could use whatever leaves you prefer. I've also used these same azalea leaves around the base of the build to create little bushes like this. And if I come around this side, you can see I've placed some in the corners as well. I've also used these leaves to create little custom bushes with some of these large ferns around the build, and these help to provide a little bit of framing and bring some more of the colours from the build out into the landscape. Now you can really get creative and use this type of build for a number of different purposes. It could make a really cool shop, for example, but I've decided to style mine as a farmhouse, so let's check out the decorations that add to that look. Of course, we've got some wheat fields dotted here and there, and I've just gone with a couple for this build. There's another one tucked around the back. And I've used some fences to frame these and just provide a little bit of separation. Over at this one, I've built a little scarecrow, once again using colours that are found in the main build. If we come around to this side, we're going to walk past a little wheelbarrow, perfect for that farmyard feel, and I've turned this little canopy area into a seating space. Along this way, I've created a little chicken coop, again with these spruce supplies, and this is such a cute little rustic touch. Coming past this next wheat field, we come to a market garden, where I've got a range of different crops growing in a really natural way. When it comes to fantasy medieval style builds, I find that the way to go for decorating is to balance having a purpose for each space with a rustic kind of natural feel. Coming back out to the front of the build now, you can see that I've placed this tower cottage along a rustic road made out of a mixture of gravel and dead coral blocks, and I've placed in some warm coloured paths leading up to the doorways under this covered area, and then going off to my different feature points in the garden. I've also placed a little cart along my road with a little horse, and I've used spruce fences throughout just to guide the eye to which decorations you want to feature. Now I've placed this build along a road with lots of other fantasy medieval style builds, so you could use this as part of a town or as a standalone build. As for the rest of the greenery around here, I've used mostly greens and whites. There's a few dandelions here and there for that overgrown look, but by using these colours, it lets the colours in the build really be the showcase. And speaking of which, let's check out some other colours you could use to really transform this tower. So of course, we're starting off with this red coloured roof. But why not try out switching out the colours for a purple hue like this with some cyan elements with the warped wood to create a really whimsical feel. You can see that I've swapped out the roof here for some of these amethyst blocks, and they have such a beautiful twinkle. I've also gone ahead and swapped out the glass for some purple here, although cyan stained glass would look lovely as well. In place of the looms, I've used some of these warped logs, and they have a magical appearance the way they move like that. And to tie in some of that cyan, I've used some of these warped doors as my feature door. I've also gone ahead and swapped out the lanterns from these regular colored lanterns to these cyan ones. And don't they look magical? Another adjustment I made here is that I swapped out the brown color banners for the window shutters for these ones here, which have a pink outline on a white background instead, and it works really well with this color palette. Perhaps instead of leaning into that fantasy feel, you want something a bit more medieval, like this. So you can see here that I've changed out some of the wall materials as well, so let's check it out. For this option, you can see that I've gone with deep slate as my roofing material. Now, with all of these recreations and different color schemes, you can see that I've stuck to using just the blocks because I like the way it looks with a bit of the edge sticking up above the dark oak. But you could absolutely use some deep slate stairs on these top sections of the two high sections to create a more smoother curve if you'd like. I've also used a mixture of deep slate and cobbled deep slate placed where we have all of the looms, and that's bringing in that dark hue from the roof. So I always try and match the block that I've got here with the roofing material just to bring everything together. To tie in with this more rustic look, I've also swapped out the walls here for a mixture of sandstone, smooth sandstone, and sand, and I've also gone with some darker spruce coloured leaves. Instead of the window shutter banners, I've used some trapdoors here, and you could use these trapdoor ideas for any of the builds if you are having trouble creating or getting enough materials to make the banners in survival. As for the glass in this build, I've just gone with plain old white. I prefer this over the plain glass just because it has a more frosty old look to it, but you could absolutely use regular glass for this colour palette or any of the colour palettes. And last but not least, for this particular design, I've swapped back to the regular coloured lanterns to tie in with that medieval feeling. For this next option, I've gone with a mossy look. You can see that I've swapped out the roof blocks here for moss, and that's allowed me to plant all sorts of flowers on top. Now I've gone with a mixture of orange, yellow, white and green, but you could absolutely use whatever colours you like here. You'll also notice all of these beautiful particles floating around, and I've tucked some spore blossoms inside the build to really add to the ambiance. Let's check out what else I've changed. You'll see that for this particular style, I've swapped out the stripped spruce logs for some of these oak logs. I really like the texture they add, and they add a pop of brightness with this light oak coloured interior. I've stuck with the sandstone, sand and the smooth sandstone combo for the walls, and for the glass I've used a mixture of yellow, green and lime green to create a stained glass window effect. I've even placed a little floral design here in the centre. I've switched back to the window shutter banners here, and I think brown works well for this particular colour palette for the moss, but if you've gone with a different colour palette for your greenery, perhaps pink or blue flowers, you could tie that colour into the window shutters like we did on the amethyst style here. I've replaced the looms in this design with some of these note blocks, and I kind of like how they have this almost floral shape which matches the floral window I've got down here. Another subtle change I made for this build is to swap out the iron trapdoors down here at the base with some dark oak, because this build has a bit more of an earthy feel. Here are all of these variations all together, so you can see how making just a few changes to the blocks you use throughout the build can really transform the look. We've got everything from a very traditionally medieval look to fantasy, a mossy, almost hobbitish type house, and this blend of fantasy and medieval. So have some fun and get creative trying out different block palettes, and be sure to share a picture of your build over in my Discord server. So now you have a beautiful fantasy medieval build which you can customize to create your own unique design. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!